welcome to the Republic of Middle-Aged Men. As usual, you have your three hosts. You have myself, Tim, you have Lachlan.
Howdy.
And Ruben.
Hello.
Well, it's the 23rd of March, and it's our first episode for the year. Woo! So we're off to a red-hot flying start. That's just life, eh? I think I had illnesses. Everyone's families had illnesses. There was a night where we just said, let's play Forza. I mean, it's just all happened this year.
The Forza night was a good night, though.
Oh, best night. I'm thinking of calling this podcast the Republic of Middle-Aged Drifters. And just streaming our Forza gameplay, because it's just so much fun doing that.
I think that was about like the first time I had done that for probably 2 years, I reckon.
Yeah, it was good.
It's been a while. It's good.
So, you may remember on that night, I bought the new DeLorean ripoff from Hyundai. So, I did some mods on that, and I got it to do a top speed of 435 kilometers an hour. It's crazy fast for such a cheap car. And I also found that I had unlocked the Barbie the movie car, which is an old Corvette 4-seater Stingray, not a 2-seater, strangely. But it's electric.
Yeah, right.
And turns out it's a fabulous drift car. My first go drifting up my favourite drift track, I got within like 5,000 points of my best ever score. It's just like, I don't understand. But there's no gears, it's just one gear electric, top speed of 160, and it just sticks the tail out and holds every corner. It's just weird.
I suppose like the thing is with like electric, because it's like constant torque. So it shouldn't really matter how fast you're going. The torque is just flat, so you could...
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how good a thing it was. I'm like, this is making me feel strange. Why is this pink electric Corvette as good as my friggin' Tokyo drift cars and Chem Block Mustang?
Well, mate, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I'm sure we could pink wrap a Tesla for you, so you could live out your fantasies if you really want to.
Well, the problem
They're going
is
cheap.
it'll probably get set on fire.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be. Here's a conspiracy theory for you. Maybe they're not getting put on fire; they're just catching on fire, and they're blaming it getting caught on fire.
Well, the thing that I don't understand is, wouldn't they be drawing the swastikas on their own cars?
There's a comedian making a joke about that. I can't remember. It was something like...
if that's the case, how do we know they're being vandalised? The owners are just like, oh, sweet, now I can just put a swastika on my car. So no, it's not improving anyway.
Yeah. And some comedian said, someone had vandalised the back of my car, walk around their back, and there's a swastika on there, and right next to it, they'd put a scratch.
That's funny. So, all right, well, let's kick off with our tradition. What are we drinking? I have just finished a Peroni, so I'm about to begin a Peroni. What are you drinking there, Lachlan?
Mate, I am, would you believe, having a plain old ginger beer because I have been going alcohol-free this month, so on a health kick. So 23 days without a drink, so there we go.
You heard it here first, people.
First time ever since I've been 18, I reckon. I've probably gone that long. Anyway.
So what's the where's the finish line?
Well, the end of the month, so it's literally a calendar month. So the end of March was the finish line. So yeah, it's kind of funny.
March.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like I'm not a massive drinker by any means, but like I'll enjoy a glass of wine with dinner or something. But it's very funny how habitual it is, and when you try to break something that's habitual, how awkward it feels. Well, for the first week anyway. After that, it's fine. But yeah, it's just it's been an interesting exercise.
Yeah, no, fair enough. How about you, Ribs? What have you got? you got a bit of a laggy spike there.
Yep, he's frozen.
Yep. I might just pause for a sec. We'll get that sorted out. All right, and we are back. What are you drinking there, Rubes?
Oh, I'm drinking red wine. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It was just whatever's in the pantry.
Nice. Red wine is fine.
It's a good choice.
Okay, well, we should probably pick up this book. Just blow the dust off it. All right, so we're up to book 3, I guess, verse 14. I don't know what we were calling that before. I can't remember. So I'll read this and then we'll discuss. Wander aimlessly no longer, for neither will you read your own memoirs, nor the acts of the ancient Romans and Greeks, and the selections from books which you were reserving for your old age. Hasten then to the end which you have before you, and throwing away idle hopes, come to your own aid while it is in your power to do so, if you care at all for yourself. Interesting.
You think he's just leaning back into the memento mori sort of thing again, and more or less sort of saying, like, I suppose you can't sort of put these things off for old age. Maybe, I mean, he doesn't sort of really go into sort of say old age isn't going to come, but I guess he's saying if there's something you want to do, you should just do it. Maybe.
Yeah. I think part of it is getting rid of idle hopes. Stop thinking about what's a good way to say this, the Australian way? Don't be the man from Gunna Do. Be the man who's in doing it now,
Yeah.
That's probably a good Aussie way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've known plenty of guys from Gunna Do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like I'm gonna do my Datsun one day.
I'm gonna fix my spa one day. That's in the backyard. Currently home to several frogs.
Yeah, I should rename my Datsun Idle Hopes.
Ooh. How about Dozen Idle Hopes?
Yeah. Hopes at Idols, Dozen Idols.
Oh yeah. Yeah, interesting, and it's the same with the memoirs and the ancient Romans and Greeks. I think it's about being in the now. It's stop thinking about all the past and thinking about the gonna do's. Just get on with what's in front of you. I'd be interested to know when he wrote that. Was that during a particularly difficult time during the plagues, maybe, or during one of his wars? Like, that's the problem with these entries. Sometimes I don't quite know where it fits into his story. It's just his journal notes, so it'd be good if he just dated every entry for us.
Yeah, that'd be handy.
Yeah.
Like he sort of says, for neither will you read your own memoirs. I wonder what he means by that. Like, I can understand the other bit about, like, you've got all these great books you want to read, but you're going to get to them later, which is fair enough. But maybe he's saying, like, you're not going to read your own memoirs because you're not writing them. Like, maybe you meaning to write them and you're not kind of doing it. So maybe he's actually kind of chastising himself for maybe not keeping his journal as much as what he'd like to.
Yeah. That could be part of it. What do you think he means by come to your own aid while it is in your power to do so?
I guess he's just saying it's a decision, right? So, it's on you if you're going to like if you've got this big list of gonna do's, it's on you if you want to do them.
Yeah, I was just going to do them for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to call this episode "The Man from Gunna Do."
Take a note.
Yeah, I am doing that right now. Man from Gunna Do.
Heard it here first, folks.
Beautiful. Cool. All right. I think that's great. Is there anything we want to add, or do we move on?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Let's move it on.
Okay. Let's go to 15. They do not know how many things are signified by the words stealing, sowing, buying, keeping quiet, seeing what ought to be done. But this is not brought about by the eyes, but by another kind of vision.
Ooh. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It seems like the what he's referring to at the end, by another kind of vision. I'm guessing he means like kind of like a moral intuition, which goes beyond just straight definitions of words. But I don't know who he means by they in that, so it's kind of hard to follow.
I think it's almost like like it's when you're sort of like debating it in court, and people like argue, like literally arguing, the definition or the reasons or the whatever else, and he's just sort of saying, you can define it any old way you like, but when you hold yourself up to the to the scale of morality, like it's not going to care how you try and phrase it, maybe.
They do not know.
But it's funny, keeping quiet, seeing what ought to be done. Like there's some unusual, like it's not the sort of thing you're going to hear in a court, is it? Like,
Well, they're lumping. Yeah, it's lumping a whole bunch of different things like stealing, sowing, buying. But yeah, I don't know.
It's unusual. I wonder what he's.
Yeah, that one's a little bit odd. I don't really know quite what to make of it.
I've just decided to look up an explanation about it because it is a bit vague. It's saying that he's reflecting on the nature of life, death, and the impermanence of things.
Okay.
So whether it's fame, wealth, or the body itself, it's fleeting and subject to decay. So it's a reminder to focus on what's within your control, thoughts and actions, rather than being attached to external things.
I don't think that's a summary of that specific paragraph. I think that's just generally the gist of most of the book.
Yeah, it says that's what passage 15 is talking about, but
yeah, odd.
Yeah, I wouldn't have picked that.
No, I don't either. It's strange.
Might just have to chalk that one up to the ages.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it another way of saying these things aren't exactly what they seem to be?
I don't know. I'd just be guessing at this point.
Yeah.
The only thing I can do is maybe try to look up another translation, but reverence. Here's another translation. This is very old English version, though. They know not how many things are signified by the words of stealing, sowing, buying, keeping quiet, seeing what ought. For this is not affected by the eye, but by another kind of vision. Nah, it's sort of same thing.
Same.
Yeah, we might have to put that one down as I'm not really sure.
Well, I'm going to be somewhat controversial, and let's see what Grok 3 has to say about it.
I just found another note, and it just said to use your guiding principles, not your eyes, to see what ought to be done.
Okay, that kind of makes
sense. I'm trying to see how you
sense.
might make that out of it.
It's just interesting turns of phrase that just they all seem pretty random. Like the last sentence you can make some meaning of, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah. No, my best guess is that it's making reference to moral intuition over other types of knowledge, but like I'm
Yeah.
just guessing at this point.
Well, Grok reckons that Marcus is pointing out that most people are unaware of the true nature of reality. They're caught up in superficial pursuits like wealth, fame, or sensory pleasures, without understanding that these things are transient and ultimately insufficient.
Yeah, all right, I'll take that.
So to focus on the soul and intelligence instead.
Yeah, right.
That's better than I was able to come up with. Thanks, Grok.
Yeah, well.
Oh dear, oh dear. Thank God for that. Well, let's move on, because that one was as clear as mud. 16. Okay. Body, soul, intelligence. To the body belongs sensations, to the soul appetites, to the intelligence principles. To receive the impressions of forms by means of appearances belongs even to animals. To be pulled by the strings of desire belongs both to wild beasts and to men who have made themselves into women, and to a Phalaris and a Nero. I don't think I said Phalaris right. And to have the intelligence that guides to the things which appear suitable belongs also to those who do not believe in the gods, and who betray their country, and do their impure deeds when they have shut the doors. If then everything else is common to all that I have mentioned, there remains that which is peculiar to the good man, to be pleased and content with what happens, and with the thread which is spun for him, and not to defile the divinity which is planted in his breast, nor disturb it by a crowd of images, but to preserve it in tranquillity, following it obediently as a god, neither saying anything contrary to the truth, nor doing anything contrary to justice. And if all men refuse to believe that he lives a simple, modest, and contented life, he is neither angry with any of them, nor does he deviate from the way which leads to the end of life, to which a man ought to come pure, tranquil, ready to depart, and perfectly reconciled to his fate without any compulsion. Chunky.
Yeah. I think it felt like that was going back to sort of our classic Socrates sort of there. Thinking about the good and the way to live your life and living by your principles and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, very much so. He starts out with body, soul, and intelligence, which is probably similar to in Socrates with the Hydra, the man, and the lion.
Mm. I thought it had a nice little sort of like parallel a little bit too with what was it? I can't remember who the character was. Was it Thrasymachus's father or something like that they're talking to at the start of the Republic? And he lived a good life, and he's approaching death, and he says he sleeps well because he's lived by a good moral compass, didn't make many enemies, and he sees his friends who stab people in the back on the way through, and they're starting to wrestle with their conscience because they haven't lived a good life. So I think this is just sort of reflecting on that maybe, and sort of saying, well, there's something to be said for the good man who lives according to that morality and keeps things simple and modest in order to sort of follow their principles. So stay to that path, and don't worry if other people don't get it. It's okay.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is that he starts out by saying that basically the good man and the bad man have all of these things in common, and he includes the intelligence in that. And I think from what he's saying is the difference between a good man and a bad man is that he lives in that way that you just described.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's I think it's just interesting that he's sort of saying too is, like you're to come pure and tranquil, ready to depart. And I really like that because I love that part of Republic as well. So it just resonates with me. I think feeling like you've done what you should have and you're ready to go when it's your time.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't know who Phalaris is. I know who Nero is. So I'm assuming he's describing them as negatives.
Mm.
A man. So he's got men who have made themselves into women, and to Phalaris and to Nero. So I'm guessing he's grouping them together as he's saying like these are not good examples, but they share. Um,
So
they,
I looked up
they,
how to say that word because
yeah.
I thought I said it wrong, and it says he was a tyrant of modern day Sicily, and he's linked to the idea of the brazen bull, the torture device.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So
So he's
so
like
you're
a
saying people who
tyrant.
behave in that way are driven by. I think he's inferring that they're people who are driven by their appetites.
Yeah. Okay.
So more like giving into their passions, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like even animals. Basically, even animals act that way
yep.
because they're being pulled by the strings of desire, is the word he uses.
Mm.
But he's both. So wild beasts are just driven by desire, and as are people like Phalaris and Nero, and he throws in men who have made themselves into women. So I guess you could say people who are acting contrary to the natural order. But it's interesting though, because Nero and Phalaris are both tyrants.
Mm.
But I guess you could infer from that he's saying that people that become tyrants are operating contrary to natural order too.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But then he goes on to say that, intelligence and have intelligence that guide to things which appear suitable belong also to those who do not believe in God. So saying people that don't believe in God and people that betray their country and do impure things, they also have intelligence.
Yep.
So I guess he goes, he goes on to say this is everyone, good and bad people, all have these things in common being driven by desire, having access to intelligence, and receiving appetites. Okay, and then he's like, "This is what a good man is." Yeah, I guess that's the way to summarize it.
So do you think his definition aligns with what Socrates would say is a good man? Because his conclusion of the difference is that for a good man, the good man is to be pleased and content with what happens and with the thread which is spun for him, and not defile the divinity which is planted in his breast, nor disturb it by a crowd of images, but preserve it in tranquility. So basically preserve the spirit and be content with what you get.
Well, that's Stoicism in a nutshell, right?
Mm.
So I guess the question to ask is there a progression with the Stoic idea? Is there a progression from that and that of what Plato describes? Plato certainly says, like he almost certainly is like, well, uh, yeah, he wasn't a Stoic strictly speaking, was he? But his whole thing is, the life of the mind and doing justice. Yeah, I don't know whether there's a difference. It's certainly similar.
Well, I think Socrates was talking too about the fates, and when you're sort of like dealt your lot by the fates to sort of, you know, live within that, if you know what I mean. There was a certain thing that he was sort of saying about acceptance. He wasn't saying that you couldn't choose to do something within that, scope of your fate, right? But you did need to accept it to a degree, right? But how
Yeah,
you to implement that was you still had free choice to be able to try and implement the lot that you're given. And I
yeah, but
suppose
also in the
you,
apology, he basically says, doesn't he go down the whole path of you can't harm a bad, like you can't harm a good man,
Mm.
kind of thing. Like you can't actually do any evil to a good man because, but I think that also comes from like what you're saying. If a good man is doing justice and he's accepted his lot, then you can't actually do any evil to him, which is pretty extreme, but.
Yeah, well, 'cause it's like the only way you can do evil to them is to make them
Do
lose
evil
their
themselves.
morality. Yeah, they do it
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
So I think that's all pretty much very much in line with this.
Mm. Yeah.
I found it particularly interesting that it talks about the to not disturb the divinity within by a crowd of images. Now that's what is that saying? Like, is that talking about impressions or is it talking about actual images? Like, what is it?
Which section are you talking about? Read it.
There remains that which is peculiar to the good man, to be pleased to content what happens with the thread which is spun for him, and not to defile the divinity which is planted in his breast, nor disturb it by a crowd of images, but to preserve it in tranquillity, following it obediently as a god, etc.
I hadn't noticed that. Not to disturb with a crowd of images. Yeah, well, I mean, what you just said is, I think that's correct, but I hadn't really thought about it, and what you're saying fits. So I'm struggling to come up with another way to look at it now.
Well, because it reminded me of Tolkien when he talks about Saruman. That one of the reasons he became corrupted is he studied evil too much.
Yeah,
In Tolkien, and I'm just wondering, is this similar sort of angle that there's a divinity in here, and if we smash it with too much stuff that's not helpful, you're actually going to damage it.
you won't preserve your tranquility. It's almost, It reminds me also of that cave analogy, like they're just filling the brain with the shadows on the wall rather than the real thing. So I don't know whether it's a direct reference to that either as well. But that's almost the same thing.
I think the other angle I was thinking about it from was almost like an angle of pride and sort of like in some ways being prideful of your morality and sort of like almost like clouding the divinity through some sort of arrogance there that like I'm so humble, I'm so good, I'm so moral, and that you've now clouded it because you've I don't know been too prideful in that position you've taken. You're like clouding that divinity through your virtue signaling in some ways, right?
Yeah. Right. Preserve it in tranquility. What to think about that one?
Yeah, because I don't know, because like where it's sort of saying like preserving the tranquility, it's almost like like you don't need to make a big deal of it. It's just you're living your life according to the morals that you believe to be true, and keeping that divinity in your breast. So you don't need to overcomplicate that by crowding it with all these other thoughts about how awesome I am around doing that. Maybe I don't know. That's just sort of where my mind went to.
Yeah,
fair enough. Part of it. I think that's part of it.
Well, the bit that really made me think of Socrates is the sentence after that, where he's like, "And if all men refuse to believe that he lives a simple and modest and contented life, he's neither angry with them nor does he deviate from the way in which he leads to the end of life." But also, what strikes me with that is that's a very objective. Like he's setting up a very objective moral bar there. He's basically saying, even if everyone disagrees with him, he's still living a good life, which you would hope is not controversial, but a lot of people these days still, don't make that distinction. Like people don't realize it, but a lot of them act like pure moral relativists.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that Marcus Aurelius, all the way back then, not being a Christian or Islamic or any of the other one, or any of the other religions that you would typically associate with a moral or objective, um, you know,
Framework.
morality.
Yeah.
He's landed there. You know what I mean? Which I find interesting.
Yeah. The as a man being coming to the end of life, being pure, tranquil, and ready to depart, and perfectly reconciled to the fate without compulsion. That's a place that we don't really reflect on too much in our culture, particularly. Um, I don't know about you guys, but like I may have shared this before, but I recall last summer seeing my wife and children walk in front of me together, and I said to my brother-in-law at the time, I was like, I know looking at them now that if I died today, they're going to be okay. Like I've got them to a point where they will have each other's back. They're tight. They'll get through it. And that was like a big sort of moment for me, like thinking, oh, I can let go a bit. Like, I feel like I've had a good life. I've had good influence. I've set them on a good course. I can trust in the process that's there and in my faith, and sort of step away peacefully if I needed to. Don't want to. I'd like to be around a lot longer, but I felt like for the first time, I think, where I've ever looked at my family and gone, even in my absence, they're going to be okay now. I've done what I need to do to put them on a good path and a good opportunity forward. And that's weird. It's weird to get to that point because I don't think many people in our culture do. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think people would reflect on it. Yeah, it's but I think that's been one of the interesting things, I suppose, with like like a level of like stoicism sort of entering back into a level of popular culture now, because it's probably not been something that's been thought about a lot in the last sort of 40 years or something like that, maybe. But there's probably a few more people starting to think about it, which is great, you know. So I think there is something to take away from that, because as much as anything, I think, you know, it is helping you to focus on the now as well, as, you know, because maybe not everyone can look at that and sort of go, hey, it would be okay if I was to depart now, and it might be the wake up call that I've got stuff I need to do, and I need to get moving on it rather than putting it off.
Yeah, like I've noticed that since I've had that thought, I've been really thinking a lot more about how can I help other people now. Like, who can I mentor? Who can I help get through difficult times? Who can I help grow? All those things are sort of coming into mind more, and I'm starting to think less about things that I want for me and more about like what other people need. And like it made me reflect on the Republic a lot because I thought like, wow, is part of this me trying to justify the first 44 years, or is it uh, or is it just I hit a good spot and I'm trying to be generous? Don't know. Yeah, it definitely crossed my mind. So, but there's something super rewarding about it. Like when you help another particularly I find if you help another man who's a father who's finding something difficult, oh, there's nothing better. Like it's such a rewarding feeling to go, I was able to help someone else be a good dad today. You know, like that's a great feeling. So
No, for sure. I mean, I wind up probably not doing it as much in personal life, because I suppose I do a bit of it with work. It's because I'm a leader at work, and you do wind up talking about a lot of like non-work stuff. You get a lot of people who've got stuff going on in their lives, and you know, try and coach, try and help. Most of the time, it's not work stuff. Funnily enough,
Yeah.
so we can do that. But I know you do tend to go the step further. You do you try really hard out of work, and you do some really good stuff, Tim.
Oh, thanks, man.
You're a good
Appreciate
fella.
What do you think, Rubes? Are you finding as you get older, you're starting to think about how you can bless others more?
Yes and no. I'm still right now. I'm still thinking about your original question, which is, do people generally think about this?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that, but it seemed pretty evident to me from some of the things that happened over the last couple of years that people are way, 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 way too uncomfortable with the idea of losing life and losing loved ones when they're so willing to give up so much for such a small risk. And I don't think I need to speak too cryptically for people to understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I think if you have a society where so many people are in that mindset, I think it's evident that they haven't stepped back and thought, what is actually valuable? Am I at peace if I don't make it through this? So at risk of being somewhat bitter, no, I don't think people take that approach.
You're probably right, Rubes, and I know like we shared something on the group chat recently. I talked about people's satisfaction with that response in Australia, and I think I mentioned how shocked I was at how many people seemed to be like happy with how things were handled at that time, which like I found kind of shocking. But that sort of speaks to your point. I think like maybe it's just maybe people are just too consumed with fear to look outside. I don't know.
I think sorry, Tim, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, I think we've been too long at peace. I think a nation that hasn't had any sort of major war, like Australia's never really had a major war on its own land, and the last big war that we kind of had big problems with was probably Vietnam. So, we just don't understand. We don't understand, and we're in this age now where you have two kids and they both grow up, whereas 100 years ago you needed 4 to get 2 because of the child mortality rates, and like everything's just so much better for your odds of making it to an adult and not dying from stupid things, and we haven't had those conflicts. We're just not used to it. We're not used to, like, I talk to my grandmother and people from her generation who are still around. They had people dying all the time. They had brothers dying and kids dying, and we just don't. It doesn't happen. I think that's just part of the problem. We're just too sheltered from it. We don't know what it looks like, and so we're afraid of it. Yeah.
But to answer your other question, yes, I have been contemplating how you can bless other people around you. I don't have any firm answers.
So, but what do you think inspires that? Do you think it's that you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, I'm okay, this is okay, who else needs help? Or is it more that you realize I'm not going to be around forever and I want to do some good before I check out?
Yeah, it's more for me. It's more towards that second idea. Like, you provide for yourself. That's all good and well, but what are you to other people? Like, what have you done that's good? I don't know whether that's more of a unique Christian idea or whether people naturally think that way at a certain age or what. I don't know. I know that I'm told that the psychological literature says that it's pretty normal around midlife. Not so much to think about blessing others, but to start thinking a bit more deeply about life and what it means and what you've achieved and, the whole midlife crisis thing and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm told that the literature says that at midlife people tend to be more contemplative of things like religion and things like that. So it probably has got something to do with, living a certain amount of time and then start to think about what it all means. But yeah, what you said, definitely, I do think, what good have I been to the people around me? I'd like to be a net positive before I check out with any luck. But
look, I reckon you're a pretty good dude.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I don't think it's necessarily like people intentionally. Sounds stupid. I'll say it anyway. It's not that people are like intentionally being sort of selfish in some ways, but I think like when you're, running from your like, let's say like your mid-20s through to 40 or something, right? It's probably like one of the busiest kind of times in your life, I reckon, like because maybe you're trying to get married, maybe you're trying to start a family, maybe you're buying your first house, you started your career, you're trying to build your career. There's just a lot of there's just lots of stuff going on, and maybe you're not really intending to be so sort of self-focused, and like it's not purely self-focused because you might be just thinking about your family and like I need to do this stuff because I've got to be able to you look after my family, have a home for my family, be able to provide for my family, make sure we can, do all these sort of things. And it's probably just a bit more sort of like fight or flight kind of mentality at that time. It feels like you're in the trenches and you're kind of just you're running hard, but you've got lots of stamina at that point in time. I think when you sort of hit 40, you sort of start to hit a bit of a groove, and you've kind of like hopefully by then like worked out, have you sort of been in a career for a little bit of time, you're pretty sure about what you're doing now, you might have had your home loan for a while too, you're pretty comfortable with where you are on that sort of line as well. Life just starts to sort of get a bit more I wouldn't say autopilot-y, but you know what I mean, like you know where you're going, you've got clearer sort of direction, and I think it just affords you a bit more mental space, and maybe that's why we get a bit more contemplative at that sort of age, because life just affords that for you at that point in time. I'm not saying I'm kicking back my feet up. It's certainly not bloody happening. But some of that other stuff stops being quite as big a mental load, and I don't know, you start to explore this stuff. But that said, had I not sort of started doing this thing with you guys back in the COVID, maybe I'd still be just kind of like trotting on and not having picked it up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, still looking at the wall sort of stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. I think one thing that I've been reflecting on just this week is that like I've been visualizing my journey as a play on a stage, and there's different acts, and at some point my wife and I came together and there's spotlights on us, and then we had kids and the spotlights, there's more spotlights, and we're like one big circle moving around this stage together. But like right now my daughter and son are both thinking about trying to get their first job, they're thinking about what they're going to do after school, and I can see a time really soon where they move to different parts of the stage and the spotlights sort of shift to them and there's less light on us, and then at some point they'll move off into their own sitcoms and we'll be cameos in their show rather than them being part of our show. And so it's sort of making me think bigger, like, oh gosh, okay, how do I help those shows succeed rather than my show? And then having reflected on that, I realised, oh, what was that like for my parents? And so I try to talk to them a bit more about things, and then I'm like, how my siblings who have older kids, like my in-laws, for example, have a 20 and an 18-year-old, how have they navigated through this? So then try and talk to them about it, and you realise it's way bigger than you are. And so I think that's part of it for me. It's just like going, wow, for a while, this show's been all about this, and now it's about to become, like that, like Big Bang Theory becomes Young Sheldon. Like there's going to be a new show happening very, very soon, starring my kids in their own thing, and I can still be a part of that if I play my cards right and support them, but it's not my show anymore. That's kind of weird. It's kind of weird to think through. Similar thing.
That's an interesting way to think about it, but yeah, I think it's exactly the same sort of thing. So it, but yeah, I think we sort of afforded a certain amount of wisdom at this point in time, where I don't know. You can probably sort of say, if I could give myself some advice going back 20 years with the benefit of experience and hindsight or whatever, I'd probably like to pass some of that on. And so I suppose when you have that thought, you look for somebody else, maybe similar to yourself, like maybe what you were 20 years ago, and go, I could probably help that guy. I know what he's going through. I could probably give him a point in the right direction.
If I could tell myself something to do 25 years ago, it would be buy as much gold as possible. Doesn't mean that thing's gone up in value. Anyway. All right. Well, I think we chug on. That was the end of book 3. I think we can get through the first 2 of book 4 and then draw a line in the sand, because that little section 3 is huge. So
sounds like a plan.
All right, let's go. All right, so book 4, 1. That which rules within, when it is according to nature, is so affected with respect to the events which happened, that it always easily adapts itself to that which is possible and is presented to it. For it requires no definite material, but it moves towards its purpose under certain conditions. And it makes the material for itself out of that which opposes it, as fire lays hold of what falls into it, by which a small light would have been extinguished. But when the fire is strong, it soon appropriates to itself the matter which is heaped on it, and consumes it, rising higher by means of this very material. Interesting. Is it basically saying we'll deal with it? Like whatever gets thrown our way, we will adjust?
Yeah, I guess. I maybe you're right there. Maybe it's actually a pretty simple thing, and they're just sort of explaining it in a bit of with a few different examples. But it's easily adapting itself to what's possible and what's presented to it.
It's like an older version of "We didn't start the fire."
Thank you, Billy Joel. It's according to nature. Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on that one.
I really think that's what he's saying. I think if we that the spirit within us is very adaptable, and anything that gets thrown into it, we can turn it into the fuel for the fire and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, well, I think that's with the caveat when it is according to nature.
Yeah. When would it not be according to nature? When would we come up against something that's not in accordance with nature?
That which rules within.
I guess they're sort of saying maybe because you're in accordance with nature, you can flourish and adapt. But if you're doing something that's out of step with nature, you're not going to be able to flourish, and maybe you're not going to be able to adapt because you're doing something that's out of step with it, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, he starts off with saying that which rules within, so I guess you can imagine different things ruling within you. And it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing.
Do you think he's talking to the spirit that Socrates was talking about, the daemon?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Body, soul, and intelligence. That which rules. Well, I guess, it depends on what you let rule you within. What do you give into? Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I think if he's calling it that, it's when it's in according with nature, right? So he must. I think he's like leaning towards when you approaching that positively, like with those right, values and whatever it may well be. I don't know. Maybe that just keeps like building that success rate adaptability. But yeah, I don't know if he's saying it's still sort of coming back to like doing things in according with nature. So I think it's asking for that sort of. I'm thinking. Why I keep thinking positively? What's the word I'm looking for? Appropriately aligned. I don't know. I've lost the word I'm thinking of.
Describe deeper. We might be able to find it together.
No, it's all right. We'll park it.
Blank.
I'm trying to dig up. It's not coming to me.
No, that's fine. I think that's encouraging. I think he's saying to himself, like, you're going to be okay, have a crack. But you're going to get through it.
Well, I mean, if you go back to the last passage where he's talking about what differentiates a good person from a bad person, and what he's saying is a good person is acting in accordance with nature, and it doesn't really matter what's happening around you, because you're not deviating, from that right path. I think it's almost saying the same thing again. He's like, if you're at peace, if you're ready to face death, and you're content with life, then anything that's thrown at you, the fire within will just consume it rather than it, snuffing you out.
Yeah, it's powerful. Like it's a good analogy or example of persevering and overcoming. Like,
yeah, because there's that line in there that says, "By which a small light would have been extinguished, but when the fire is strong, it soon appropriates to itself the matter which is heaped on it." So he's like saying, if you have that weak flame inside you, if it's not it's not a true fire, then it will when something bad happens, or
it'll get snuffed out.
If you're not in content, it'll get snuffed out. So I know it's interesting a way to. It's like is your house built on rock or is it built on sand?
It feels very much like that. Yeah, the unquenchable fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Right, one more for the night, and then that'll do, because 3's enormous. We'll do that next time. Book 4:2. Let no act be done without a purpose, nor otherwise than according to the perfect principles of art. Don't procrastinate, is what I'm hearing. Now, the second part, nor otherwise than according to the perfect principles of art. So is that saying, is that closing a loophole? Because I'm very much a loophole guy. so it's like, no, I have a purpose for doing this thing, but my purpose is to do it badly. Is he saying, like, if you're gonna do it with purpose and do it in accordance with that purpose, like, properly?
Yeah, that's actually like my grandfather always used to say, if you're going to do a job, do it properly. Like, no half-assing. Like, if you're in, you're all in.
Yeah.
I think it's
Now, I'm going to share a little bit. I am naturally wired that way, and I had a mentor a few years ago when I was running something that was just enormous and high pressure and crazy. And he tried his best to absolutely slap that out of me. And he kept using the phrase, you have to ship minimum viable product. Sometimes he listens to the podcast, so he'll know I'm talking about him. But And that was like, he was right. About that particular job, if you aim for perfectionism, nothing would get done and you would get wrecked daily. So you just had to aim for good enough, go. Good enough, go.
Yep.
And
my boss says the same thing to me, actually.
Yeah.
because I'm guilty of trying to do the same thing. So I'll sit on it because I'm still perfecting it, still trying to get it closer and closer and closer. And she said to me, Lachlan, your 80% is as good as most people's 100%. So just let it go.
Yep.
Release it.
Yeah.
But it's, I've been brought up with that word from my grandfather, though, so I find it really hard to break that, because if you're going to do it properly. I don't like putting out stuff that's not 100%.
My old man's the same, and
Yep.
working on cars with him, any repair he saw done by anyone else that wasn't perfect, he'd
Yep.
just call it, look at these bodgy bastards. So it's like, yep.
But mate, I don't know if you remember, but we used to work with a guy whose nickname was Dodge because he used to dodge everything up.
Yeah. Gosh. Oh man, how long ago did we work together? That's
It's gone back a
that's
few years
yonks ago.
now.
What's that? 22 years ago? 23 years ago?
Something like
Jeez.
that.
What do you think, Rubes?
Oh, yeah. To me, it's just saying, do like if you don't have a reason for doing something, don't waste your time. But I think you're right about that second loophole part. It's like if you're going to do it right. But yeah, I know you guys are talking about plans, and sometimes you got to like halfway is good enough. Like so, you just got to do what you got to do and then move on. But I don't know. I'm a little different. I don't like things to be too regimented. Like it kind of I start to get very uncomfortable, fidgety if things are planned too much. I'm that for whatever reason that kind of person who just like if things are too organized, I'll just take that bottom block out.
You're an agent of chaos.
Yeah, I'm not saying. Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I particularly love chaos, but I don't like. I'm much more of a like throw it at the wall and see what sticks, and I'd rather go in there and just see where the punches start coming from. I don't like really planning too much. I don't like over planning it. I don't know whether it's because I'm incapable of it or just constitutionally against it, but yeah, almost anti-establishment sort of thing. But anyway, that's just a personality thing, I think.
My wife said a hilarious sentence to me a few weeks ago, which was, your ODD is showing. The ODD is oppositional defiance disorder.
Right.
Yeah, context, visiting nursing home where grandmother and mother-in-law are both at, and they had someone in the complex had got a cold or something, and so they were telling everyone to put masks on, and I was like, no. I'm not wearing a mask. And it was uncomfortable for everyone in the room except me. And I got told my ODD was showing, and I was like, cool. And I walked in without the
Well,
mask.
here it is.
So, yeah. No one said a word.
Actually, you did say something to me the other week, Tim. Like, I've never really thought about why I like the particular movies I like or whatever like that. What particularly appeals to me about certain types of art. And Tim, you said to me, yeah, you just like it because it's anti-establishment. And I'm like, oh, hang on. I think he's right.
That's the common thread in everything you like. It's
Yeah,
against the grain.
I like those
It's against the
offbeat
grain.
movies. I like those offbeat movies that don't really make sense. Like not because I understand them or don't understand them. I think I just like them because they're not normal.
It's quietly raging against the machine.
Yeah, I guess.
Just on that last one, something did come to mind, which is it's one of those phrases that people say, but it's probably something in it too. But perfect's the enemy of good.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. That makes sense, actually.
Sometimes you're going to do more good getting the thing out, even if it's not perfect. than sitting on it forever. It's like someone writing a novel, right? And they never finish it because they keep re-editing it.
You need to write a letter to George R. R. Martin then. Yeah.
He won't listen.
No. Well, that was good. I reckon we just do a quick pub for lots of us. Just put that there so I remember where it is. We had our music going, which I really enjoy. So I'm wearing a hat, which is a clue to the pub for lots of us, and it's just that new Assassin's Creed's out finally. So much controversy about this game. Everyone was blowing up about how it'll be crap, and about the main character not being from Japan, and both characters having, we'll call it, appetites that are not in alignment with history. It's probably the best way of talking about it. And so far I've played maybe 2 hours and it's fantastic. Really good. It's selling well. Most people's feedback is pretty positive. There's going to be some people that don't like it. That's fine. I like it more than the last Assassin's Creed game, which was Mirage. I felt like that was an expansion pack that got dragged out. So I like it. But I get it. I get the rage. People want things to be true. And it's strange that a game that is always playing with history as its playground and taking what is history and making it fantasy, there's just something about taking a historical person who we know heaps about and changing parts of their personality that just was the extra bean on the seesaw to tip it to outrage. And I think, like, having done so much philosophy, I think that's probably right for people to have gotten upset about that. Like every other character they've done, yeah, there's been historical people, but it's that they're not people where their relatives are here talking about them and they know them, like, from their history, and you know what I mean. Like it was a little bit. The person's too well known to rewrite their history so far without upsetting some people. I think that's where they went astray. I don't know.
I think it's unnecessary. The thing, like, do you guys ever? I know Tim's seen it. Lachlan, did you ever see that TV series Rome? I think it ran for 2 seasons or 3 seasons.
I've got Tim's box set sitting on my shelf over here that I've still not watched. In the 2 years it's been sitting on my shelf.
Incredible. It's incredible.
It's just genius because they've got these certain points which are historical.
Yeah.
And is, from what I can tell, they're more or less on point. Like, that's actually what happened. But then where they get creative is the side characters and the stories and who they were and how they affected those historical things. And you could see how, if those stories were true, we wouldn't know that now because the historical outcomes were the same. And there's so much room for creativity there. So there's absolutely no reason to take a historical event or person and change them that much, because you've got all of this leeway outside of that to have so much fun and do whatever you want, be as creative as you like. But why would you take the thing that people know is a certain way and change it? It just doesn't, it's unnecessary. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I get it. I'm with Tim. I can see why people get the craps with that.
I really think that's all it is. I think if it had been any of the other side characters and they played in that way, everyone would just be like, yeah, whatever, no problem. But because it's someone where we actually know, that's where it's like, come on.
It just feels like a Netflix switcheroo, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much what it was. But anyway.
Yeah. But parking that issue,
the
graphics are beautiful. The gameplay so far is great. The music I'm not 100% sold on. I still think the best music is from probably Brotherhood and Valhalla.
Well, because I noticed there's a couple of cutscenes in that, but that's a real departure for Assassin's Creed, where they had sort of like modern Japanese pop rock kind of like dropping into like some fight scenes or something like that. And I was like, this is so weird in a period thing. Like, yeah. I mean, it was like, I'm not saying it was bad music. Music was fine. It just seemed a bit jarring in what
it was as out of place if they'd put in Japanese techno jazz. Like, it just doesn't. Yes, it's Japanese, but it's It doesn't fit.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah.
It was kind of strange. I mean, like, obviously that's not dropping in too often, and it was trying to obviously sort of like punctuate a scene. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like you're watching Kill Bill all of a sudden instead of something from, a period a long time ago.
The only thing
it's been fun.
The only thing I'm a little bit really upset about, I guess I could say, is because I haven't actually played it. But what I'm upset about is we didn't get a Forza Horizon in Japan before we got an Assassin's Creed in Japan. That's all.
Yeah,
that never even occurred to me. That would have been a great game.
Well, there was a lot of speculation about that before the Mexico one happened, because everyone thought, this is it. They're going to do Japan. They're going to do Japan. Like, finally, they're going to do it. Except the fans have been saying they want it for ages. And they did Mexico. So, I don't know.
That might be what they do for next gen.
Yeah, maybe they're saving it.
Yeah. Because they've had a few years break. I think they'll give it 5 or 6 years and then go, we're back, baby. And we're back with the next gen console, with Unreal 5, with ray tracing, and we're in Japan. I think they're just going to go.
Well, also because they're allowing that to be played on PlayStation now too, right?
Oh, that's great. That's good news.
Yeah, so maybe like PlayStation is probably bigger in Japan than what Xbox is.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Wait till
that's only just happened.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, so maybe that's why they're holding off.
Give me the Toyota Sprinter with the black and white paint job with the noodle delivery stuff up the side. Let's go.
Yeah, they do Horizon Japan and they release it simultaneously on PlayStation and Xbox. Their sales are going to be next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, before we go, I'm going to Japan later this year, as is Rubes. One car you can bring back from Japan. What is it? Go.
It's going to have to be Baraketsu, which is a Nissan Laurel Coupe.
Ooh.
Baraketsu is slang for pig's butt because it's got a chunky ass on it.
Okay. Ruben, what's your call?
Don't know, don't care. All their cars are too small and they don't have enough cylinders. So,
For me, it's the FD RX-7 in blue. Ah, so beautiful.
It is. It is indeed.
All right, thanks, gents. This was fun. Good to get 2025 kicked off finally. For those listening, the Republic definitely wasn't built in a day. No, it's this podcast. But thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Good night, guys.
Thanks.